Welcome to Built to Heal. I'm Dr. M, your host, and I am so excited today because we are diving into optimizing nutrition and wellness while on a GLP-1. And so today I have Dr. Ann, our CEO of Pinto Innovative Health and Wellness, and our guest, Caroline Fornshell. Caroline is a seasoned registered dietitian and nutritionist, a personal trainer, and a certified diabetic educator, and our founder of LWell in our community. And so we're so excited for you to be here.
Oh, you guys, thank you so much for having me. We have so much in common and so much to unpack today.
Yes, we really do. So the first thing I want to ask you is just tell us a little bit about your journey with LWell and getting started with GLP-1s, because you guys have been doing GLP-1s for a while now.
Yeah. We've been probably the OGs on GLP-1s. We started right in about 2023 because I had been a certified diabetic educator since 2015. I was really comfortable with the medication for treating diabetic patients. So when it was available for weight loss, it was just a natural progression into our practice. I started LWell in 2013. Really pretty much alone. We had some exercise classes and things like that, but generally it's been nutrition focused for those dealing with chronic disease and obesity, for this whole time. So from that standpoint, we started moving towards really just focusing on medical nutrition therapy, a variety of dietitians. I think we have 43 of them right now, with various specializations that would really just work one-on-one with the patient that had the specific condition they specialize in. I've really specialized in metabolic disorders and complicated weight loss now for about 20 years. So I always say nobody sends me the easy ones. If there's a complicated case, I really like to dive in, unpack it, uncover the root cause, heal, and then allow weight to fall off naturally. The GLP-1s have been a really nice way to kind of replace some of the natural GLP-1 lost over time, but also to help us build a little bit of momentum with some of the lifestyle habits so that we can really kind of gain more measurable success responsibly.
Right, absolutely.
Responsibly is key there. I love that. Yes.
Yes, definitely. So for our viewership that's just turning in, I feel like most people know what a GLP-1 is. We have all heard about Ozempic and all of these celebrities taking these medications, and they're becoming more popular. And a lot of people are talking about the shots for weight loss. I did want you to dive in a little bit on the science, and if you could explain how does a GLP-1 medication work, and what do you see from that kind of standpoint of how it works, and what are the potential side effects that we need to be paying attention to, especially from a nutrition standpoint?
Okay, there's tons here. So let's back up a little bit and talk about that there's more than one GLP-1, and they do slightly different things. I'm going to talk really right now about the semaglutides. This is Ozempic and Wegovy. So all three of those things basically mean the same thing. Ozempic is going to be coded for diabetes. Wegovy is going to be coded for weight loss, but they're both semaglutides. And so this was really our first generation GLP-1 that was really available for weight loss because it was a once a week shot. So it made it very convenient. The two ways that it impacts our patients and facilitates weight loss are, number one, it slows digestive motility. And so you simply just feel full a lot faster. A lot of people actually have just a physical cue to really stop eating. Like they are uncomfortably full fast. And honestly, that part of it works pretty well. Even now that we have the next stages of these GLP-1s, this first one still works really well, I think, for our eat food people, who just don't really, they're not the emotional eaters. They just keep going, so that one clamps that stomach down, but they do feel, they're more likely to feel that kind of physical, oh, I'm uncomfortable, That one is more associated with digestive issues as well. Slowing motility from head to tail really means that you might experience more acid reflux symptoms. And of course, constipation is one of our biggest side effects with that medication. The semaglutide is also, the GLP-1 piece of it is really what allows insulin resistance to improve. And this is key. And this is why it's just such a great medicine for so many people, is that it really allows the pancreas to provide a more precision amount of insulin to match whatever glucose is floating in there. And if you know a little bit about the process, it's like, okay, well, you need to have the right amount of insulin to match the glucose so that the insulin can allow the glucose to get into the cell to be used for energy. And so if there's too much glucose out there and not enough insulin, or if there's too much insulin out there, it kind of desensitizes the cell from working with the insulin in order to get the glucose into the cell at all for energy. And that means it's just going to stay out there and raise your blood glucose, and everybody knows that's not a good thing.
Right.
So this medicine does a really good job of facilitating that interaction so that you don't have an elevated blood glucose all the time, which is why it was used for diabetes in the first place.
Right. Absolutely.
So the kind of second generation are the tirzepatides. These are known as Mounjaro, which is coded for diabetes, and this is Zepbound that is coded for weight loss. Again, same drug, coded differently so that the FDA can track the efficacy. They're both considered tirzepatides, and this one works a little bit better than the semaglutides. Semaglutides are associated maybe with about 16% of body weight loss. The tirzepatides are associated more with like 22% body weight loss, and this one does affect the brain neurotransmitters a little bit related to food because you aren't driven to mindlessly eat on this medication. It almost stops the want. We see more people who actually even reduce their alcohol intake. We've had people who smoke a lot less or not at all anymore because it just simply reduces your want. And that's why it is so much more effective, especially for our emotional eaters. So it can be a really useful medication for both of those things. Of course, there's side effects there. We've had people who felt absolutely down and depressed a little bit because the things that gave them pleasure no longer gave them that pleasure. And if that was kind of where they self-soothed and they hadn't found a replacement behavior, I'm always trying to get people to exercise and sleep more. But you know, if we're still hanging a lot of our happiness on that Coke or that whatever it was that donut or whatever,
Our society doesn't help that either because every celebration seems to be centered around food that is not good for us.
Well, it is very true, very true. I come from a big family of big eaters, and I feel that, what you just said, Anne. So, and we also, working through all those things. So the science is there. It is a well-supported, well-studied medication at this point. It's just really, at this point, figuring out what doses work best for each individual. And that's the issue that I think we're still looking at, the diabetes-coded medication, the Mounjaro, the Ozempic, is still has the same dosing as the obesity-related versions of them, which is going to be the Zepbound and the Wegovy. And I'm like, well, why are we giving diabetic doses, for our patients with obesity, or even with overweight and prediabetes? So from that standpoint, it for a lot of people it seems like a lot. And because of that, we're seeing more side effects than we probably need to see. I think we can avoid a lot of these side effects with lower doses.
Absolutely. And just talking about the side effects, I know that that's something that I see a lot as a physical medicine rehab doc is people come in and they're struggling with something. Sometimes it's the GI upset, but sometimes it's also like they feel weaker, they look a little bit more sunken. We see kind of the Ozempic face, Ozempic butt, like all of these things are becoming actual terms in our society. And so I was just curious, like, especially from a nutrition perspective, what you tell patients from like a macro base, like what do you tell them about protein or their nutrition? What do you guide them to get the best results with this type of med?
It's a great question, and of course it's going to vary from human to human based on your
Absolutely.
size, activity level, maybe some genes in there. But overall, one of the big issues here is that your appetite is way less, but you still have nutrient needs. And so I think that this is something that's highlighted in the news all the time. It's like, oh, we're losing a ton of muscle mass, for example.
Yeah.
And I was like, hey, that's the tip of the iceberg, folks. Okay, there's a lot of nutrients that are really
lost.
that are being lost. That are you're in total deficient mode.
Right.
And what does that cumulative problem create over time?
Yes.
Time will tell for sure. But looking at just macronutrients, these are nutrients with calories, carbs, fats, proteins. One of the things I feel like is, always an issue when we're talking about people who are concerned with weight loss is like, oh no, I don't want to eat too many carbs. And I'm like, well, you're eating more than you think for sure. And the medicine helps you metabolize them better. And of course, that doesn't mean that we're going to go out and have mashed potatoes and cake every day, but we still want to include some carbohydrates in the diet. And one of the main reasons for that is to support a healthy microbiome and digestion. I'll circle back around to skeletal muscle mass here in a second, but carbohydrates are actually really where we can find a lot of the balance that we need to metabolize other nutrients in your digestive tract. So this is the microbiome, and a lot of the bacteria in that microbiome feed on a lot of the carbohydrates, So we need them to proliferate and keep you healthy. The immune system begins in the gut, and I want you to have a good one.
Yes.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
from that standpoint, where we need a balance between our carbs, our fats, which are going to support, our hormones. That's another big podcast topic, right? Our hormones and our cognitive acuity. So we can't go all back into 1990s SnackWell diet, where we're all very low fat because, we want to make sure that we keep that brain sharp. And then, of course, the protein, which brings us to the skeletal muscle mass.
Absolutely.
Some recent reports have suggested that up to 40% of the weight lost on GLP-1s is from skeletal muscle mass, and that does not need to happen. It doesn't. We've seen people lose 60 pounds without a single pound of skeletal muscle mass lost, and we're testing that on our in-body body comp, which is, you got the DEXA. There's a couple of different versions of it. We have 2 different in-bodies in our office, and we're measuring that skeletal muscle mass every week. That's how we know it doesn't have to happen, and why the nutrition strategies are going to be key. It doesn't take much to trick your body into burning fat instead of burning through your muscle. This is an easy thing that all of you guys can implement today, where if you go longer than about 4 hours without eating, your body will default into your fat storage mode. It's got to eat something. It's going to eat your muscle mass. It doesn't take much to flip the switch and allow you to continue burning fat for fuel here. It might take 80 calories and 6 grams of protein or so. This could be like an egg or a cheese stick or, something like that. And then you might have a few more hours where you can, eat less. This is key because so many people feel like, oh, I have to have lunch. I have to eat, and I'm like, you can, the medicine's helpful. You don't have to eat as much, but we have to get some of the nutrients in the protein in. So, eating some protein here just to keep the body into fat burning mode is key. How much how much protein does each individual need to maintain their skeletal muscle mass? It can actually only have to be about a gram per kilogram. It doesn't have to be an enormous amount. For most people, this is going to be somewhere between like 80 and 120 grams. We generally blanket a lot of people as about 100 grams, give or take. That generally works for a lot of individuals. Sometimes I want more so I can crowd out whatever else they're doing.
Sure.
Makes
sense.
So, but from that standpoint, your skeletal muscle mass needs that base level of protein just to exist, and timing is going to matter too. So from that standpoint, kind of having a well-balanced diet is reasonable. I think that most people can achieve this at a lower calorie level if they're doing a like a macro blend of about 30-30-40. This is, let's say, 30% of the calories coming from carbs, 30% of the calories coming from protein, 40% coming from healthy fats. I like that blend.
Nice.
In order to, and so if you're on the MyFitnessPal, if you're tracking, just own your math and go in there and check your macronutrients. But that blend works better for people on GLP-1s because we can get your protein level up. Make sure you're getting the right essential fatty acid blend, and also keep digesting things well.
Right.
You know?
Yes, that's huge. That's huge.
Yes,
But
for
yeah,
sure.
that's one big thing that I wish more people knew on a GLP-1 is that you should be tracking your body composition. It is not just about weight.
Amen, sister.
It matters, and it so matters from a physical medicine standpoint and your quality of life standpoint for you to maintain that skeletal muscle mass. Because you're losing like 8% every decade, and it just keeps on getting worse and worse and worse. And if you're not counteracting that, and then you're adding something that also it can reduce your skeletal muscle mass on top of that, you are just fighting a losing fight.
Right.
And most people don't even know. And that's kind of my biggest thing. If someone comes in my office and they're on a GLP-1, I'm like, all right, do you know your body composition? And if they don't, get them on the scanner. Yeah. And there are so many things at home. Like, yes, you can come into our offices. We have the body composition, or you can get a body composition scale at home. There's body impedance. There's so many things nowadays. But it's just so important to track that number. And I wish more people were cognizant of that.
Right. Could you talk for a minute, too, about the importance of muscle mass with longevity and aging? Because I think so many people just feel like it's just about strength. And it's so, so important metabolically with healthy aging and just increasing that health span as opposed to lifespan. And I think that it's that if people can understand that importance of it, that it's that much more drive to make sure that they're taking care of it. Yeah.
I think the biggest thing that I see, and just in my experience in medicine as a whole, is that what people want when they think of getting older is that they want to be more active. They want to not be debilitated, to not have life with disability, life with chronic disease, like
Risk of falling.
all of these things. And when you ask people like what their ideal older person is like, most people elevate these people that are still doing what they love, right?
Yes.
But how do you keep on doing what you love? You have to keep moving. You have to keep your muscle mass up. Because if you don't keep moving, unfortunately, we will start to deteriorate. Then you get more pain. Then you get more injuries. Then you have a higher risk of falling. And we know that falls in the elderly actually correlate to death rates. And so this is something that is so important because it's not just about just adding life.
Yeah.
You're adding numbers to your years, right?
Yeah.
Cool, we live to 90 or 100, but it's about adding life to those years.
And one of the things that you guys do that's so invaluable, especially with this population, is the physical therapy and chiropractic care.
Yeah.
Because you're absolutely trying to keep everyone in the appropriate alignment. So if you are, let's say, in inappropriate alignment, or if you are all of a sudden, hunched over and you are, I always call it the kind of, you look like the shape of the chair, you know? It's like, and then you go and lose skeletal muscle mass because you're on a GLP-1 and you're not eating enough protein. All of a sudden,
Accentuates all of it.
it accentuates all of it. You lose the skeletal muscle mass right where it was maybe holding you up, and then that injury becomes more profound. So kind of combining all of it together to ensure alignment that while you stick with the muscle mass. And honestly, the tirzepatides especially, I think, work so much better with strength training, where it's like, okay, it allows that entire process with your your insulin, your glucose, your mitochondrial function works so much better when you strength train. So
Absolutely.
there's unlimited reasons to keep that skeletal muscle mass going.
Yeah.
It truly is. And you look at, I look at patients that come in that are hunched, and I always wonder, how did that happen, right? And it's so sneaky, I think, that it just, you start to have these changes, and they seem gradual, and then all of a sudden it's like, how are you even moving, right? And to correct it once you've gotten to that place is so very challenging. So if we can keep people understanding how important that muscle mass is for so many things, that it just a little bit extra motivation to do that strength training.
Oh, you've got that right. Yeah, right. It all has to come together. It's self-care, So,
Definitely.
eat your protein, do your strength training, surround yourself with your support team, for your
Absolutely.
longevity. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Another thing with strength training, and just thinking about that also from a physical perspective, and what we see in our practice, is that very often people don't work out because they're in pain, because they have issues, right?
All day.
And so one of the coolest technologies that we've actually implemented into our practice is called HIFEM. It's high intensity focused electromagnetic energy, and the machine is called Emsculpt Neo. And the thing I love about it is that it literally can make people stronger by just laying there, which is a beautiful thing with the patient that has knee pain, and it sucks to do squats. But we want them to do squats because we know that can help their knee pain, help them maintain their muscle mass, and even potentially increase it. But if they're unable to do that squat, then their brain just gets that negative feedback every time they try to do it.
Right.
And so with Emsculpt Neo, we are literally allowing this technology to do the work for them. And it's a great jumpstart, because with a 30-minute session, we're able to do 20,000 reps of that muscle. So it's like equivalent of doing 20,000 squats in 30 minutes. And you're like,
With no soreness, mind you. So which is awesome, because it's the way that the system works with the way that it applies the energy, it actually pumps any lactic acid that's produced out in the process.
ask.
Because it's like, oh my gosh, we tell people, when you do abs, it's like equivalent of doing 20,000 sit-ups, and you're like, how do you move?
How do you walk
after
out of
that,
here?
right? And but because it pumps the lactic acid out, there is literally, I don't think there's any soreness. It feels like it's been used, and it feels stronger.
Yeah.
And the other thing that's so amazing, as she mentioned, you jumpstart, because once you have activated these muscles that haven't been activated for a long time, and this is really great for your GLP-1 patients, because a lot of them, they're obese, so that they haven't been doing the exercises, so it's so hard to get started. But when you can give them the jumpstart, once those muscles are activated, it gets to be fun to work out, because it's a whole different ballgame than starting from square zero, because you've already got some strength. The innervation has increased. The awareness of the muscles is completely different. So we notice people hold themselves a little differently. And I think a lot of it also, we find so much of it with aging and movement is what we believe. Like, we'll get people who say, I couldn't do a squat. There's no way I could do a squat. But you give them some support, have them hold on to a chair, and get them to do it, and they're like, wow, I really can. But people will do something and it will hurt, and then they'll start to accept, well, it's just because I'm older.
The self-belief is a big part of this whole process here with these GLP-1s
and
too.
so I think as they're losing weight, and you can motivate them and get these muscles activated, and really then help to change their lifestyle from the physical perspective, which then really also helps to change the lifestyle from the mental perspective along with it. So it's just it's so fun.
I know. It's beautiful. Anything that can get that positive momentum going, and so it's one of those things. If it's a little bit of GLP-1, or if it's a tool like the Emsculpt, it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, look, we're a lot better than we were, you know, and where are we going from here?
Exactly.
We've seen so many success stories where, an individual, for example, had lost 190 pounds, and this was bariatric surgery followed by GLP-1s, and was hiking the Grand Canyon,
So cool.
And it's like, wow, look, that never would have happened.
Yeah.
Look at the life she has.
Yeah.
So,
and that's why we're all here.
Yes,
It's just so rewarding.
Absolutely.
It's so rewarding.
It really is.
So,
But yeah. So circling back, I just want people to take real tangibles away from today. We talked a little bit about the macros that people need to focus on. I really am curious on your thoughts on micronutrients. What supplements do people need to be taking? What should they be thinking about in this regard?
So great question. Okay, so our macronutrients are nutrients with calories. Our micronutrients are nutrients like our vitamins, our minerals, our phytonutrients, those cancer fighters, etc. That kind of do the back end work. You know. Before I move on to the micronutrients, let me say one thing about that one that's between both macros and micros is our fiber. Technically considered a carbohydrate. Fiber is missing in the U.S. diet for sure. Before GLP-1s, about 30% of LWell referred patients had a comorbidity with digestive disorders. So now, in the post-GLP-1 world, we're seeing that, no pun intended, blow up. Okay, because GLP-1s do slow the motility, we are fighting a sort of an uphill battle here to ensure that people are going and things are flowing. Because if you are not using the restroom in this way, if you're not having that number two, I say if you're not going, you're not losing. You know, because of the toxic waste you're really just kind of holding on to, right?
Absolutely.
So from that standpoint, getting your fiber in is key. You have to do it. The minimum is 21 grams for women, 25 grams for men. I'm usually trying to push that up a little higher. Has to be a slow process because you don't want to just overnight increase your fiber. That could exacerbate the problems. But in the meantime, also make sure that your water is up to where you need it to be before you start adding that fiber for another reason, right? So we talked about your protein, we talked about fiber, we're talking about fluid, how much fluid are we looking at too? All these things almost have to be here before you start supplementing as well, which is why I wanted to touch base on that there. You know, the standard has always been the 8 glasses of 8 ounces per day. I like a little bit more while we are losing weight, you know, as that fat cell begins to shrink in size. It will elicit some toxins into the endocrine system, and being well hydrated just simply allows your body to discard that waste better, your lymphatic system to work better. So so before you start introducing a lot of attention to the micros, make sure we have those 3 things done first.
Definitely.
Then looking at our micronutrients. What aren't you eating when you're on GLP-1s? I'll tell you right now, because we're looking about this all day. Nobody feels like a big fluffy salad on GLP-1s, right? You are full and a couple of bites, and we're not able to get the nutrients in from our fruits and vegetables that we were able to accommodate before. So immediately everyone's like, okay, well, I'm going to have to supplement protein. I'm supplementing fiber, and I'm trying to get my water in. And I'm like, okay, I hear that all day long. And I'm like, well, that is a processed diet. What we know as we're fighting inflammation all day long is that we need a whole food diet, you know, not just because of protein, not just because of essential fatty acids, but also because of our vitamins, minerals, and our cancer fighters, our phytonutrients. So we don't have enough space with that,
for those live foods, because the live foods all have a very high water content as well, which is why they're great to eat, but very difficult to eat, I'm sure, when you're feeling full right away, because there's just so much volume in it because there's a lot of water in all of it. And that water is not just water, it contains a lot of the micronutrients that we're after, right?
Amen, sister. Yes, for sure. You know, just trying to figure out, like, well, what's the easiest way to get these vegetables in there, you know? So raw is harder for people during these phases. So we're seeing less big salads. We're seeing more lightly steamed vegetables, you know? I will lean on, if somebody will go and do the smoothie thing, I will lean on that all day long, you know? I mean, that's an excellent breakfast, and I know we're getting to a sample day later, but it's an excellent breakfast is to start out with a smoothie with our fruits and vegetables in it. Throw some protein in there, you know? But how else are we going to sneak it in? Sometimes it's easier, especially for our raw vegetables, to drink them, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And so if you can...
We just did a juice cleanse a couple weeks ago, and it was just amazing. I was only 4 days, and I tell you what, we all felt fantastic. So it's just, you can get so many of those micronutrients like that. So yeah.
Gotcha. And the juice is great because you're gonna, it's almost like a live multivitamin.
Yeah.
It's a little effort. It's a little
Yes.
effort on
Yes.
that.
Yes,
It doesn't
the
work.
juicing process
Definitely effort.
It is
Oh my
an
goodness.
experience.
Cleaning your juicer is
Yes.
gonna, take forever. But and just to really clarify, if you are at the store buying juice, it is not doing what fresh juice type of cleanse would do at home. You lose a lot of the nutrients in processing of juice. Actually, overnight you would. So anything that's about over 24 hours old is not going to deliver the same nutrients otherwise. So we don't buy our juices unless you have a freshly squeezed juice place and trying to stick to just vegetables in there. But that's a great example of another way and tool to get some of those micronutrients in. So other ones that I'm really into right now are like just microgreens in general. This is available here at the Williamsburg Farmers Market as my favorite way to send people. I think they have them at the Yorktown Market Days as well. But you get a lot of bang for the buck when you are eating like those broccoli microgreens.
Yes.
There's a whole class of micronutrients that is really unable to be quantified on a given diet. We just don't have the tools to do it really very well. But the detoxifying element of your broccoli especially is a key place to spend some time, especially if you're on a GLP-1, because you're never going to eat enough of this. And so you can supplement, with broccoli, and a lot of people are doing greens powders. It is not delivering the same impact when it as a potent detoxifier, as a support to your liver. So from that standpoint, I would say it will take effort and strategy to get your greens in while you're on a GLP-1. Do not ignore it. Okay, you still need those things, and it just doesn't deliver in the pill form as well or in a greens powder. Not that I'm opposed to those things, but just that it's not the same.
Absolutely.
So that's an important.
Not enough alone. Yeah.
Not enough alone, So, how else can we get our fruits and vegetables in, and the nutrients they deliver? It's not a bad idea to take a multivitamin when you're on a GLP-1. Just as an insurance policy, I care less about the brand and everything on a multivitamin. It's just there to support. It's not necessarily delivering your phytonutrients.
Right.
Ideally, those would still come from your fresh foods, but at least you are making sure that you're not giving. I don't think you're going to get scurvy, but something, something of the equivalent. So starting with a multivitamin is not a bad idea. Most people are still going to benefit too from a little bit of fish oil. Fish oil is a great anti-inflammatory. Sometimes if you're on certain medications that are blood thinners, you're going to want to double check that this isn't contraindicated. But most people are fine on some fish oil. As a matter of fact, in higher doses, it can even act as an appetite suppressant by itself. So for some individuals, even 2 grams, of fish oil can actually curb the appetite a little bit, even without the GLP-1. So try that first. Right. So that's a good one. Of course, magnesium is everywhere, and people are always like, "Oh, what kind of magnesium do we take?" And I was like, "Well, if you are having a lot of digestive trouble, the magnesium citrate can be the good one to take." But as we're looking at the different ways that magnesium is delivered into the body, we're looking at doing more of a magnesium bisglycinate or glycinate. And that can also be helpful to support sleep. So that's a nighttime one. Magnesium threonate can be really useful, I think, for just cognitive acuity. So right. So if we're looking at different types of supplements to take, you can try some of those types of things. I don't think that that's a bad idea. You do have to balance it with your calcium intake. A lot of people lean on dairy in a big way during GLP-1s, and so I'm like, well, that's a lot of calcium, and so it's also just good to kind of recognize recognize the timing, and make sure we get that magnesium a little bit separated out. There's some other ones that can be really useful just in supporting health and wellness overall. We do like, I'd say like a little bit of berberine for a lot of people can be a good kind of metabolic accessory because it works kind of synergistically with the GLP-1s in the process to allow that insulin and that glucose to get into that inside the cell. A little bit of berberine can sometimes behave well, known as kind of nature's metformin. It can be, supportive, as can N-acetylcysteine as another way to ensure that your mitochondria is just eliminating sort of the excess byproducts as you're metabolizing more glucose. So, I think that, that's probably a good starter list. I'd like to do a lot of CoQ10, for people too. We're hoping that with some of this weight loss, we can get people, to reevaluate if statins are appropriate. So a lot of people are already on CoQ10 if they're on a statin. If you're not, you should start. But from that standpoint, that's probably a good list. Many people do well with a B complex as well because a lot of those fruits and vegetables aren't getting into the body. But, I'm hoping that we just, do what we can to get them in there.
Yeah.
So,
one question that I had, because one of my favorite things to kind of talk about with patients if they're unable to get as much protein as they would like, is taking amino acids. And so I was curious, did you guys talk about essential aminos and supplementing those at all for your GLP-1 patients?
I think that for those who are having a difficult time around their workouts, if like they wake up and the best time for them to get a workout in, we'll use amino acids, to help just get them jump started if they have no appetite or if they've, tried to consume something, even if it's liquid, and get rid of that. Because of the slow transit time where your gastric pouch your stomach itself is releasing food so slowly, it does kind of put your protein on time release, and so from that standpoint, I don't do a lot of supplementation with amino acids outside of that kind of fasted workout window. However, so many people are trying to supplement with collagen, and that's so simple and easy on the stomach. It is not a complete protein. It's not that you shouldn't have it, it's just that you don't want to expect it, you don't want it to do everything for you because it's not going to do everything for you. So adding amino acids, to balance that out if that's your preferred protein because of digestive reasons can be another way to incorporate that.
Yeah. Definitely.
Can I ask about fats? Your take on what fats are healthy? That has been a huge thing in my personal life. And I have found with eating different ways that as long as I'm eating what I consider the good fats, I can have as much of that as I want, and it has nothing but health impacts, is what it feels like. But as soon as you start introducing some of those bad fats, it changes. It's a game changer where all of a sudden I think that I'm a firm believer in that when you get that inflammation going, you start holding on to your own body fat. And when you consume those inflammatory fats, that you're just fighting a really tough game there.
Oh man, absolutely.
Healthy fats.
Yeah, healthy fats are always fun. So healthy fats are fats that are, they're easier to digest. We're talking about, for most people, avocado, nuts, your olive oil, your MCT oil, those types of things. Your omega-3s that are going to be, best absorbed through fish. There's some in flax, but it doesn't convert as well. These types of fats are almost a different category, right, than like your polyunsaturated fats that had been, or your seed oils, for example. It's like when we're talking about, the mediators released in the cell or outside the cell as you are eating some of these foods and getting a measurable impact on the amount of inflammation that happens when you have something like a polyunsaturated seed oil, versus something like a 100% olive oil. It is a profound difference. Yes, it's going to be an extra $1 or $2 to ensure that you have the olive oil that's actually olive oil, and you've got to do your research on that a little bit, but it is it'll make a profound difference. One thing that's always interesting about fats, is that it does do a very good job at stabilizing your blood glucose while between meals and during meals. So if you imagine your blood glucose, coming up, let's say you had gummy worms. We just, had a plate of gummy worms.
Yeah.
Our blood glucose, understandably, would shoot straight up. What comes up must come down, crashes straight down. You feel miserable. If you have something with protein in it, let's say a Greek yogurt or something like that, there is just a slight increase in your blood glucose, and you need some sugar in your blood. You don't want to be flatlined, right? And that's part of the energy piece. You need a little bit. The fats are actually flatlined completely. They don't really raise your blood glucose. So, but combining the foods together can really allow you to have a nice slow increase of energy and a nice slow decrease of energy in time for the next meal, and that's exactly what we want. So healthy fats can bridge the gap between meals. They offer something like nuts can also offer a couple of grams of protein in there too.
You throw some nuts in with your carbs. That has been something that I feel like is really helpful. If you have a piece of fruit, rather than just have the fruit, throw in a few nuts or something like that to help level it all off as you
dress
easy
up your
snack.
carbs. Dress them up.
What a fun, easy snack too.
Oh, it's my favorite. A
because
banana with some almonds with it. It's the best.
Whole food on whole food.
Whole food, whole food.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
But it's people sometimes will overthink the snacks, and I'm like, okay, if we can keep them whole food, it doesn't have to be gourmet every time, guys.
No.
You just need to have a quick handful of something and go on with your day. Entertain your palate later, like in the evening, maybe a nice dinner or something. But if you're just jamming through your day hard, I would say let's grab a handful of nuts, maybe a piece of fruit, maybe something that's simple like a little Greek yogurt. It's easy to throw those types of things together because you're going to need a lot of snacks along the way, and that really just helps stabilize, your blood glucose, which allows you to fight inflammation better too.
Yeah, awesome.
I think the bad fats too. I have heard and seen research on where the bad fats will also increase your body's cholesterol production. So, I think when you get that inflammation and it's all going on in your body, then you produce more cholesterol on your own. It's not just about the cholesterol that you're eating, and then there's a lot. That's something else we could dive into another day.
Oh my gosh, totally. Yes. I didn't even mention the sad fats. Yes, of course, for sure. There's
all good stuff.
All right, Caroline, if you had to walk us through an ideal patient day, we're on a GLP-1, our appetite is low, what meals, and kind of like walk us through an ideal day for a GLP-1 patient.
This is so fun. I really love food. I actually started as chef training. So
cool.
I know. I was on the Virginia Tech culinary team. We actually traveled and competed.
Neat.
Thanks. So I'll get into I could really go places with this fun sample day. But to keep things simple, let's say you wake up. Okay, our blood glucose is generally the highest it is going to be for the day. In the morning because cortisol woke us up, and it also rose that blood glucose. So first thing I'd like to do is actually just wake up and do some sort of movement. Maybe this is where we have some amino acids if we need to supplement there, depending on the type of activity. But maybe you just take a walk and you expose your beautiful face to some natural light, which also helps reset your circadian rhythms. From that standpoint, you might not feel hungry immediately. I know that, but I still want to sneak in some protein and some vegetables kind of earlier on. There's a lot of benefits to intermittent fasting. A lot of those same benefits come because you're not overloading your digestive tract at any given time. So I do generally want to start your feeding window a little earlier than if you were not on GLP-1s necessarily. At this stage, I'd say maybe we have that smoothie we talked about. I had one earlier. I had celery from Amy's Organic from the farmer's market. I had some frozen strawberries. strawberries. I've been experimenting with, we have like a nut milker.
Ooh.
I know. So
It is
we
hard
made
to
some,
find clean nut milks, and that's important. You know, the sources are limited, and it's very expensive when you do it. So I think that's an awesome investment.
it was Mother's Day. Thanks, John. Thanks. So from that standpoint, we have a little, Brazil nut milk in there, and then I put some, protein powder in this morning. This morning I experimented, and I used a little bit of collagen powder. I used a little bit of the Truvani, which was a little gritty in this thing. I also put some other supplements in there, my creatine and my L-glutamine, and so I put that in there. So from that standpoint, starts the day with a smoothie. I feel like that is generally good for most people, because if you have a healthy breakfast, on GLP-1s or not, it's almost an overload for your digestive tract, and so it can really kind of just put things in motion, that could be handled differently. So from that standpoint, you'll probably be hungry sooner, if you are, on a GLP-1 and you would have just had maybe that smoothie. You're probably going to need to eat again in a couple of hours. I'm hopeful that we can get, something simple in you. You'll probably be at work or about your day. I don't need this to be complicated. This might be something, I always feel like the cheese stick is such an easy go-to for so many people, because it's kind of benign. Nobody doesn't, few people hate it, know. It's low calorie because you're not hungry, and you can get 6 or 7 or 8 grams of protein in there pretty easily. So that can go well. Some people will have like a hard-boiled egg or nuts or something like that. I want to have something just basic in the morning after your smoothie, and then of course we'll get to your lunch. Most people, this could be a variety of things that would work out great. Most people who are busy might be doing leftovers from dinner. So we are looking at trying to include a little bit of protein. Let's say you had leftover grilled chicken breast and you had some leftover broccoli that would cover your micronutrients, a little bit of that fiber, as well as your protein. So that would be what I would eat first. If you were still hungry and needed to have some carbohydrates with that meal, no problem. We're open to that. A little lentil salad for something like that. If you have some room, great. If not, save it for your snack later. Okay, so a 3 p.m. snack or so. Without GLP-1s, people would be reaching for that sweet snack at this time. This is where you have that 3 o'clock coffee, you have that leftover donut, you go to the vending machine, those types of things. With the GLP-1s, we have a chance to make a better decision. Yes. And so I am grateful for that. Yes, absolutely. So do we want to have instead maybe, like that little lentil salad, the banana with the almonds, the same kind of thing, looking for a little bit of protein here to help kind of bridge the gap between those meals. You might then have a similar type of dinner. Maybe this is a soup. A soup is another wonderful way to kind of pack through a lot of nutrients when you don't feel like eating a big raw fluffy salad right now because your stomach is a smaller size. But that you probably don't feel like a soup in the middle of the day in July in Virginia. And
this is cold.
I know, right? In the evening, you've been sitting in the AC for a sec. You're fine. Soup is great, and you can get it down and set yourself up there. You can also use something like a bone broth, which is usually lower sodium than a regular chicken broth. The bone broth will also deliver about 9 grams of protein per cup, and so we can build a much more protein enhanced soup in that way. Then later on, maybe you have a little yogurt and some berries if you need to have a little dessert or something like that. I feel like my daughters were trying to make cookies the other night, and I was trying not to have them, so I had a couple of bites of yogurt, and I was okay. Those types of things as you're kind of getting through it. All the while you're drinking your water and you're, getting your movement in. At some point in there, and maybe that was on the way home from work or something like that, maybe after that afternoon snack, maybe you stopped at the gym and you did some strength training. There's just no other supplement or medication that will synergize with GLP-1 better than getting your bum to the gym and lifting something heavy. Okay, so really want people to do that for sure if they're on a GLP-1. That'll also help, at least maintain what they've got, as far as their muscle mass.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, finishing up the biggest takeaway that you want patients or anyone on a GLP-1 to take away from today's message?
Oh my goodness, one thing, one thing. It's just, use this beautiful gift as a time to hone your healthy habits so that at the end of this time that you have with GLP-1s, because nothing is forever, we don't know what happens next. We don't know if insurance coverage changes. We don't know if your health status changes. We don't know. Use this time to optimize your healthy habits so that when you or if you need to wean off these medications, you can hold something sacred, There's a journey to be had whenever you make a big change in your health and wellness. And if we lean too hard on the medication, we miss the opportunity for self-discovery and evolution. I want that for everyone, And so I'd say, lean in, use this time wisely. LWell dietitians are certainly available too, and insurance almost always covers that completely without regard to deductible or copay here in Virginia, so that can be a good coach. There's a million people getting some support. It's kind of like nobody really loses weight in a vacuum. You still need a support staff. And so wherever you find those healthy people in your life, lean hard, adapt their habits. Obesity is contagious, but so is that healthy lifestyle and a longevity for you. So
I was just going to bring up another valuable tool for coming off of the GLP-1s to really help with that mental change, to adopt that lifestyle change as something that you continue with. The ExoMind that we have, Dr. M, you could talk a little bit more about that, but it has been proven with studies, and I know you have all the more specific stats than I do, but to decrease food noise, to decrease binge eating, to really help to build a positive mindset. And in doing that, as you can wean off the GLP-1s, and you do that toward the end of that weaning off, that we have a procedure here where you do just six visits of it twice a week for 3 weeks, and that really helps with that mental change, so that what you have done is more sustainable without utilizing the medication. And so then you lose any of the negative side effects that you had with the medication. You can continue on a positive note, and it's just great for mood regulation and all those kinds of things. If you want to talk a little bit more about it just for a minute.
Yeah, ExoMind is repetitive TMS, transmagnetic stimulation of the brain. It's been around for a very, very long time, and traditionally it was used for just depression and anxiety. But what they found is that even doing shorter sessions, and with ExoMind, they've kind of changed the technology just a little bit. As with anything, with any technology, medicine, anything like that in our world, it gets better with time. And so repetitive TMS, we're now able to kind of change how the stimulation is delivered, and we're able to get very similar results in 6 sessions rather than the traditional 36. But when they did those 6 sessions, it was very cool, because what they noticed is every single person that was doing it was actually losing weight without even thinking about it. They were just all in a month's time span they lost about 5 pounds on average. And people reported, hey, I have less binge eating, I feel less food noise, all of these pieces. And so they actually designed studies around this with ExoMind and binge eating, and just with reducing the food noise. And so a lot of practitioners, including us, are using it as a tool that if people want to come off, but they're noticing that food noise is coming up again as they're coming off the drug, this is something that can be very helpful to come into the background and just enhance your neural connections in your brain. It's very safe, it's very comfortable, and it just helps your brain work more efficiently.
Yeah. And on a personal note, there's no question that I've noticed it when I've done it, where I'm a bad carb addict. If I'm on carbs, and it's the sweet processed stuff, if I let it in, I want more. But I noticed without question that when I was doing the ExoMind, that was completely gone. You could put it right in front of me, and I had absolutely no desire for it. And I know the research has shown that 70% people reported binge eating gone. just from it, and just the food noise reduction again is just super cool. So it's just a very helpful tool. It doesn't, like, in and of itself, if I have somebody who's completely fighting obesity, it's not really going to be as effective. But when you combine these things together, which is what we're all about here, combining the things for the most benefit for the patient, that really helps with that, to make all of that lifestyle coaching more effective and efficient and all of that. By changing, it works on the neuroplasticity of your brain and just really allows you to have new neural connections that are healthier than what you've been used to. So,
And unlike the GLP-1, TMS is actually supportive of this improvement without being depressed that you've lost that Coke or that donut,
Exactly.
which sometimes happens, like we mentioned on the GLP-1.
Yes,
Absolutely.
And getting over that. I mean, it helped me tremendously also just with getting over that, like a celebration and feeling like you have to partake in the food that's there. In order to do it, and the truth is you don't. I mean, you feel like you do, and that's just how we're all brought up in our society, I think, for the most part. But when your brain changes, you recognize, I don't need that, So anyway, good information.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you so much for being here, Caroline.
Thank you for having
And
me.
thank you for being such an amazing pillar of health in our community.
Oh, back at you, wonderful people. Thanks for being part of our My Healthy Well group,
Yes,
Of course.
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, thank you.
It is wonderful.
Good stuff.
All right.
Thank you.
All right.
Did it.
All right, good.